Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. I just finished watching Naked and Afraid Season 3 Episode 8, and if I had to give this episode a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 6. I was happy to see the performances from the remaining survivalists as they competed the two challenges, but I do feel like this episode could have dropped one of the challenges and replaced it with the finale challenge to determine which survivalist would be the last one standing. In my opinion, it will be pretty hard to see how the next week's episode will fill the entire 2-hour time slot with footage of just one elimination challenge. But over the course of this review, I will talk about the 3 highlights from tonight's episode, and I will talk about which of the remaining survivalists have the best chance of being the last one standing. Also, at the end of next week's review, as part of tradition, I will discuss proposals for ways that the showrunners can improve the future seasons of Last One Standing. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. The first highlight that I want to discuss will be the elimination challenge for the episode. This portion of the episode lasted over an hour, but the pacing during this time was good in that the episode didn't feel like it dragged. But in this challenge, the 4 remaining survivalists have to complete a 4-phase friction fire challenge. They have to first surrender any of their fire-making materials that they brought into the challenge with them. Then, they have to gather new fire-making materials, construct their drills, make the fire, and burn a rope that holds the map to Zone 4. The first 3 survivalists to finish secure their spots in the finale, while the survivalist that comes in last gets eliminated. So because the survivalists have to surrender their previously constructed fire items, all 4 survivalists approach the challenge with 4 completely different strategies. But if there's one lesson that I learned from this challenge, it's that having a proper strategy, as well as an ability to adapt to changes that are needed, is what separated these 4 survivalists and how they placed. Let's take Darren for example. While Patrick, Cheney, and Matt had already gathered their materials and started making their fires, Darren was taking his time to gather the proper materials to make a bow drill. And unlike the other survivalists, Darren knew exactly what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it in order to secure his spot in the finale. Darren took precautions when making the bow drill so that the cordage didn't break. He made a headband out of the cordage so that he didn't sweat over the fire. And he took cooling off breaks due to the hot temperatures outside. And just like that, Darren went from last place to first, and there was no close second. Darren was methodical in this challenge, and he earned his spot at the top. But then there's Matt. Matt came into the challenge extremely confident with his ability to make friction fire. He was sure that using a hand drill was the best way to go because of the success that he had with practicing with the hand drill. But in this challenge, his hand drill was unsuccessful despite his efforts to make it work, and Matt had to go back to the drawing board to make a bow drill. This pivot didn't require much effort because Matt was able to use his bowstring for the bow drill, which I didn't think you could do, but there's nothing in the rules that is against it. Matt comes in second place, and I knew that Matt would secure his place in the finale. Then there's Cheney. Cheney had cordage this entire time, but she still decided to go with a hand drill because of her belief that she wouldn't need the cordage. Cheney encountered the same issues that Matt did with the hand drill, which made me wonder if production rigged the fire-making materials for the challenge to make it difficult for the survivalists to be successful with the hand drills. But Cheney used the cordage to make her bow drill, and she easily got her fire going to secure her spot in the finale. One could argue that if Cheney used the cordage to make the bow drill from the very beginning, that she would have been the first to finish the challenge. So that leaves Patrick getting eliminated from the competition. While Patrick was the first to gather his materials for the fire and the first to make the bow drill, he didn't have the same strategy that Darren had when making the bow drill. Patrick didn't take any measures to ensure that his cordage didn't break, and he didn't make many adjustments when he found out that his bow drill wasn't getting him much success. Patrick put up a good fight, but it wasn't enough to edge out Cheney for the win. But truth be told, I knew that Patrick was going to get eliminated before the episode aired. Last week, I was on vacation at Hilton Head, and while some days were hotter than the Devil's Playground, on other days, it rained like cats and dogs. But while I was at the resort, I was checking out the channels on the TV, and I stumbled across the episode summary for this episode. And in that summary, it essentially said that Patrick would lose all of his survival items. I've never heard of a survivalist losing all of their survival items in a regular challenge, unless they were about to migrate or mix things up. and they usually don't do that at this stage of the game. So I naturally assumed that he would lose his survival items because he was eliminated, and I wasn't wrong. But unfortunately, things like this have taken away some elements of surprise for the show. The next highlight that I want to discuss will be the filler scenes for the episode. For roughly 10 minutes after the elimination challenge had completed, we see Matt, Chini, and Darren arriving at their respective camps and getting adjusted to life without any camp mates. The only significant thing that happened during this part of the episode was Matt constructing a hat out of his animal hide, which in my opinion was a smart idea because it would protect his head against the Australian heat. I was worried that a large part of this remaining portion of the episode would feature these filler scenes, but then Matt, Chini, and Darren get a scroll, and that leads me to the next episode highlight. In the last highlight, I want to discuss this episode's cash challenge. In the challenge, the remaining survivalists have to build a baited bird trap. They must collect 4 crickets, gather natural materials for the trap, construct the trap, build a hole for the trap, and set the trap. The first person to successfully make their trap gets their first choice between a peahen and a saw. The second person to finish gets the remaining cash, and the last person gets nothing. So just like the elimination challenge for this episode, this baited bird trap challenge was a test to see which survivalists had the best strategy for tackling the task at hand. Darren had already completed a challenge like this from season 2 of Last One Standing, and he shared that he has had extensive experience with building bird traps. While Chini was the first to gather the crickets for the challenge, Darren was close behind, and Matt was still within striking distance. And while Matt and Chini spent much of their time cutting their sticks for the bird trap, Darren just broke his sticks to make up for lost time. Darren also used his shovel to dig the hole, while Chini and Matt used sticks. Matt implemented a good strategy in constructing his trap in the mud because the ground was much softer, but his strategy wasn't enough to overcome Darren's determination, which led to Darren coming in first, Matt coming in second, and Chini coming in third. With Darren coming in first, he chose the saw instead of the peahen, and in my opinion, that was the right move to make. At this stage of the game, all the survivalists have enough food to last them for the remainder of the challenge, and having a saw might give the survivalists a competitive advantage when heading into the finale. Because Matt came in second, he got to get the peahen, and if I had a nickel for every time Matt mentioned how he fed the other survivalists, I would have $100,000. The fact of the matter is, if Matt kept the hog for himself, Matt would have likely come in first for most of the challenges due to his energy levels, but he decided to share, so here we are. But with the 3 survivalists left, here are my predictions for the finale. As of lately, Darren kicked things into high gear for this episode, and he showed me that he has what it takes to be the last one standing. Right now, I give Darren the best chance of winning the competition. He is well fed, he has taken a methodical approach to completing the more recent challenges, and he really wants to win. If Darren doesn't win, then I give Chini the next best chance to win the competition. Chini also takes an analytical approach when completing the previous challenges, but Chini and Darren are on different levels when using strategy, and with Darren having a saw in his possession, he might have a competitive advantage that tips the scales in his favor, similar to last season when Dan's competitive advantage helped him win the competition. Without that advantage, the season 2 winner would have been Kai. Which then leaves Matt. I think that Matt still has a shot at winning the competition, but outside of shooting a bow and arrow, Matt doesn't have much of an advantage in these challenges, and sometimes his strategies can be viewed as questionable. But we shall see. And this marks the end of my review. If you have any questions, then feel free to leave them below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.